Hey guys, it's Matt Wenning at WenningStrength.com, and today we're going to talk about one of the topics that makes training so difficult, and that's training load effect. So let's get at it. Okay, so when training first started, thousands of years ago and then became more scientific in the early 1900s, there was a lot of papers coming out from Eastern Germany, Russia, a lot of these countries back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And that's when training really became ultra scientific. Now, the reason that happens, and the reason that we also have a Bulgarian and a USSR flag in the gym, is not because we're anti-patriotic about the United States. It's because we like to give them praise and homage for the amount of people that donated their lives and their bodies in order to understand how physical training occurred. Now, with this knowledge base, we found that there are three different things that are considered training effects, which actually makes training very difficult because most of us only understand the first one. And the first one is acute training effect. So acute training effect is what happens pretty much immediately or right after a hard workout, right? So we get tired, we get fatigued, we need more nutrients as far as food, but that cumulative damage has not started yet. Basically, acute training effect has everything to do with what is affected by one workout. Now, the next phase is, and makes it a little bit more difficult, and people have heard of this before, but rarely put this into account in their training programs, is delayed training effect. So this means that you train hard and you may not see the results in a positive fashion for anywhere from 72 to 140 hours. Now, this is just a generalization of term, but in reality that the body really doesn't supercompensate or change itself in a positive fashion for multiple days after a training cycle. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't train until we're 100% again. Point being is that if we do legs, say, once only every 10 days, that may not be a very good duration of loading based on the fact that we want one thing. And this one thing leads us to our third ideal, which is cumulative training effect. Now, cumulative training effect is multiple bouts, either macro or mesocycles. If you don't know what those are, look them up. But a mesocycle, anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks, is usually the time it takes to see positive results from back-to-back working out. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that you get to 100% recover between each intensive bout of training. So, for instance, with our training, we will do, say, dynamic legs on Tuesday with high volume and certain weakness groups, and then 72 hours later, we will do max effort legs with other muscle groups being either fixed, corrected, and or trained or stimulated every 72 hours. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that Saturday or Tuesday's workout still not being felt, right, from the day before or after, but it does mean that we are trying to work towards a long-term goal of somewhere around 12 to 15 weeks to make a positive change in the body's not only performance but also abilities, as far as being able to contract faster, contract stronger, or be able to withstand more contractions, i.e. local endurance. So the point is with this whole video is just to get you to open up your mind and understand that there are multiple reasons why working out can't just be one day or 1 week. And I'm going to go back to one of my old mentors, Charles Poliquin, and this is a great statement for this video, and that's people tend to overestimate what they can do, and let's put this in strength training, how strong they can get in 1 year, and they underestimate how strong they can get in 5 years. So the point is that your thought process must always be long-term in training. You must always be thinking about your weaknesses, and you also must always be thinking about using training as a building block to get to a certain destination. What we find is that when people send us workouts that they're following, there is usually no long-term thought process. There's no mesocycles. There's no block of training. It's all basically just thrown together as good as somebody can put it together and hand someone. And that's the biggest problem that we see. So when you come on to online coaching, or even if you come to the workouts on Train Heroic and Patreon, a lot of these thought processes are already hand built in for you to not have to think about it. And I find that the biggest problem with the training load effect for most people is they don't understand how to deload or how to back off. You have two different styles of people. You have people that can work out really hard for 2 to 3 weeks or maybe a couple of months and then they quit, right? Or you have guys that go 100 miles an hour for as long as they can and they burn out. Now, obviously both of them are right and wrong for different reasons, but the issue is that you have to understand that training is a very long-term thought process. It needs to be consistent, and you need to understand just as much how to push hard as you do to back off. So if you need help with this kind of stuff, come on to winningstrength.com and we can get you dialed in. Talk to you guys later.